What's going on, Jeromes? Beautiful day for some Q&A. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. Let's fire it up. First up is a Wesley White OG Jerome. Here's a bit of a wild question. How would you feel about trading Sam for multiple second-round picks to completely revamp the interior O-line, specifically the guard positions, with the possibility of JJ becoming our starting quarterback is crucial to make him confident in the pocket? Yes. So I think that the tag and trade certainly is in play with slinging Sam Darnold. And I know people say, like, oh, that's doing him dirty. No, it's a business tool that the Vikings have at their disposal, right? And several players in the last couple of years have been tagged and traded. It just is what it is. L'Jarius Sneed last year going to the Titans. But Darnold, especially given the depth of the quarterback class or lack thereof, as well as there's nothing in free agency. Like, what are you going to do? Sign Russ or Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins when the Falcons cut him? Or you just hope that, hey, we can fix Zach Wilson? Nah. Even though I love me some Sammy Darnold, and we're riding and dying with him in the playoffs. Absent him winning the Super Bowl, I think it's going to be McCarthy time, right? So even though the pride of USC is going to get things done, he's going to rebound from the stupid Lions game because, frankly, he couldn't do any worse. But I think that there's going to be a ton of value there. And teams that aren't at the top of the draft who are looking for a quarterback, I think will get after things. So the Vikings could definitely get some draft capital. And it wouldn't be one for one using those picks specifically on O-line. I think the Vikings are going to hammer things in a free agency. Trey Smith of the Chiefs, no matter what, Rocky Top Tennessee, come on down, baby. That's right. But yes, I think building an impenetrable FU offensive line in front of McCarthy is going to be paramount. All right. Next, Angel Dutt Sr., another OG Jerome. If Flores departs, who would be the optimal available DC? Now, we made the case for Brandon Staley, and people have said, boo. I understand, but I said specifically, he is a terrible ass, thank you, head coach. He's bad. He's a very bad head coach. He is a very good defensive coordinator. He's very good with the matchups. He's very good with aggression. He's very good with scheming up creativity. And also, he and Kevin O'Connell have a great working relationship. Like, when Staley got the Chargers job, he requested to have O'Connell come in as his OC, run the offense. But McVay was like, nah. So I think that the level of trust there is important. Plus, given how also, like, Staley is 500 as a head coach, so it's not like he wasn't atrocious. But I just think some of the game management issues, some of the soft skills that are important to be a head coach, I think that he was terrible, and I don't think that he's going to get a head coaching crack again anytime soon. So he could be in place for a while. Also, Lou Anarumo from the Bengals makes a ton of sense in the spot. Durante Jones, Mike Saravo could be elevated from within if they don't go with Flores. I know the Robert Saleh's been floated about a lot, except he's got closer ties with Shanahan. He's got closer ties with LaFleur if they kick halfway to the curb. So I think Flores isn't going to be high on the Vikings wish list because I think he's going to have much better options in that spot. But yeah, the Vikings, given the Vikings' talent and also given this organization, like, this will be a coveted DC job. So you are going to get tier 1 candidates either way. But then Kevin O'Connell just might give it to his friend. But it's a good thing that Staley is good. He comes from the Fangio tree, coached outside linebackers for Fangio for a couple of years. So there we go. Next. Don Juan, do you believe KOC will go play calling duties ever? He's always said in interviews how physically and especially mentally draining it is to call plays as a head coach. I believe Wes or Josh McCown would do a wonderful job calling plays. Plus, I see Wes staying with us for multiple years to come. Yeah, it is kind of weird. So McCown has been requested to interview once for the Jets. It's weird that Wes has gotten zero Goose Egg Andrew Russell interview requests. Now, maybe people see that McCown has more to do with Darnold's success than Wes, except I feel like that's really unfair. I think that Wes eventually will be in demand, but he's probably going to have to go somewhere where he's going to be his own play caller. And yeah, O'Connell has addressed things, but I just don't see him giving it up because I think that from the whole, Bill Walsh, Shanahan tree, because so Shanahan was part of the Walsh tree indirectly, because it was Walsh, Seifert, Holmgren was in that mix there, and then Shanahan took over as OC after Holmgren took the Packers job. So Shanahan didn't work one with Walsh, but he is part of that tree adjacently. And then you got Kyle Shanahan, and then you got McVay, LaFleur, Raheem Morris coming from that tree as well. So Mike McDaniel, obviously. So I don't know. Like, you never see McVay. Well, McVay actually has given up play calling duties, but then he took them back really quickly a couple years ago. Those in the book I just listened to, the Mike Silver one. Kyle Shanahan's never going to do that, and it is something where I feel like as an offensive coach, it's doable. Defensively, I don't think that's doable, because offensively has much more to do with the flow of the game, where you're setting the tone as opposed to just reacting. Defensively, I think there's too much where you have to adjust as opposed to just impose your will in terms of the flow of the game. So I think that just doesn't work. But offensively, just controlling the flow, and I think that it's doable, and obviously it's doable. You look at Andy Reid, has had great success for many years, even before he got to Kansas City, won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. But I think it's something that it's a muscle that you have to work on. I think it's something that you need reps, you need hours in the seat, and I think that's where O'Connell does have a drawback, where he wasn't a full-time play-calling OC with Washington, with the Rams, before becoming head coach of the Vikings, because you look at McVay, he had experience being a play-calling OC before getting the Rams job. You look at Kyle Shanahan, had tons of experience as a play caller with the Falcons, Texans, and Browns before getting the 49ers gig. So it's something that he's getting better. But in terms of game management, in terms of on-the-fly adjustments in game, in terms of all that stuff, still a work in progress, right? But I got faith in KOC, and frankly, we have no other choice. Next, Kenneth Cole. If you could have anyone from the upcoming draft, who are you taking? So it's interesting, because it's not a top-heavy like 1-1 draft. Like, there's very good players in this draft, don't get me wrong, but there's no like generational gotta have it players. Like Travis Hunter is great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's the whole wide receiver cornerback thing is going to fly in the NFL. It's just, season's too long. There's too much attrition. I just don't think that he's going to be doing both things full time, which is part of his appeal, right? And then you look through, like, there's no Myles Garrett in this draft. There's no tier 1 quarterback in this draft. But of course, quarterbacks are probably going to go 1-2, because that's a quarterback tax. Teams have demands. But for me, specifically for the Vikings, I would take 2 guys, either Mason Graham from Michigan, who I think is going to be a disruptive force in the middle for whatever NFL team he ends up on. Obviously, it's going to be out of range for the Vikings, because I think Graham goes top 10. And then Deion Walker. So Deion Walker is just a mountain of a nose tackle. I think that he would do perfect, fit in perfectly with the Vikings. I think that his pass rush is underrated. I think that he can be a true 3-down player in the National Football League. And having Walker at nose, we've talked about for years, like, hey, getting Harrison Phillips as a 4-tech, 5-tech, and taking a lot of that wear and tear off of his plate, I think that he, even though he's been great at nose tackle for the Vikings, I think that would free up a lot of bandwidth and allow the Vikings to improve in 2 spots by bringing in just 1 player. That's why I'm still high on Taki Taimi as well. But other than that, like Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, is great, and not to keep on going back to the Michigan well. I don't know, like it's interesting, because there's so many players. I think this is going to be another great day 2 draft, which the Vikings have 0 draft picks until they get that comp pick. But late first round, early second round, and even in the third, there's going to be a lot of talent taken between picks, say 25 and 75. Like that's where the bread and butter of this draft is going to be. So hopefully the Vikings can amass some picks in that area. It'll be good to go. Lastly, Justin Colburn. Any concerns with this team's endurance at this stage of the season? Do you think we see a similar path like we did with the Wolves last year, going as far in the Western Conference Finals? Man, that was a fun season with the Wolves, and then just became blah this year. I miss Cat. Anyways, but I think it is a concern. for the defense, especially since it is an older group. Lots of free agents all up in there, especially in the secondary, and also the style of play that they incorporated towards the end of the season, where they started playing a lot more man coverage, whereas primarily zone at the beginning of the year. And then you have your great players, but a little bit older, like Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, all of a sudden like asking them to chase around receivers in man coverage, 50, 60, 70 snaps a game. I mean, that takes a toll. Right, and I think that the Vikings have been smart in terms of like pacing veterans, giving them lots of veteran days off throughout the year. So hopefully this team is able to crescendo at the right time. But I don't know, like if it's game plan wise, like if Flores deems that you got to play man these next 4 games, it's going to be tough to hold up. I mean, not so much late in the season, but late in the games where. Like I said, Gilmore is great. Shaq Griffin is great, but Harrison Smith is fantastic. But playing man and Harrison Smith chasing around tight ends and running backs all day, I don't know. Late in the third quarter, late in the fourth quarter, I don't know. But trust Flores to get after things. Hey, hopefully the Vikings offense will be able to put up points, so maybe the fourth quarter doesn't matter in some of these games. But who knows? Anyways, that's it. That's at Vikings Q&A for this beautiful day. You guys are the best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.